lock in. This is, of course, the second semi-final. Teams are playing for a spot against Fnatic for a top-of-the-table finish in the spring split. Syndra off the table from Power of Evil. Hecarim take away from Chachi, and Graves from Forgiven. Wasn't expecting a double AD carry ban, personally.
Well, it's been one of the strategies teams have used against SK Gaming. It's not because Forgiven can't play other AD carries. It's because SK Gaming as a team has kind of struggled when they didn't have this lane bully for Forgiven where he can be super strong in the early to mid game. What Unicorns are trying to do here is push him on that Caitlyn, where yes, he's going to have a fantastic early game, but his mid game is going to lack quite a lot of damage, and that's where the Unicorns can try and fight them. Meanwhile, I like the Syndra ban from SK. We just talked about how Power of Evil has to be able to play these early game mid laners. That was one of them. That's another one.
So Lulu taken as the final ban, removing in Rated's champion pool, considering SK banned out Annie as well. Unicorns of Love going to be sticking themselves to the IEM theory of how to beat SK Gaming. Cassiopeia locked in for Fox again to deny Power of Evil. All of the junglers in the world are available. All of the top lane tanks are available. And there's a number of options for both of these teams going forward.
I mean, we have seen Maokai a few times from Visichachi, but he's also a top laner who likes to pull out new things. The Smite teleport meta has now come to the top lane, and I'm sure he has certain champions prepared for it. Shyvana would be open in that situation. Otherwise, Morgana here for Hylissang, which was such a fantastic pick. Obviously coming in from the Unicorns, and the Gragas, which we saw H2K play all 5 games yesterday in the jungle for Kiki. So not a strong duelist in the early game, but just fantastic in the team fights later on from this Gragas here and all the CC you bring to your team.
Well, Hylissang earned himself that MVP of the quarterfinals thanks to his Dark Bindings early on. He's going to have a difficult task against Nami. Well, maybe not. Black Shield will be quite easy against Bubbles. Keep in mind, in rated 5-0 on this Nami and Freddy signature tank top lane.
So here's the thing about the Nami-Morgana matchup. Morgana's Black Shield is about 22 seconds, if I remember 100% correctly, at rank 1. Bubble from Nami is 13 seconds. So you can bubble, force the Black Shield, and then you have a gap now of close to 10 seconds where you can bubble again, and there's no response from the Morgana pick. This also opens up for Caitlyn for Forgiven, which is one of the strongest 2v2 lanes you can get, forcing the Unicorns of Love into a lane swap. And then I have to keep that in mind with the next few picks. You cannot lock in a Poppy and then be forced into a lane swap. So this Sion makes a lot of sense in that case because he's so good in a 1v2 situation.
All right, we'll find out if Unicorns lock it in, and they do. Sion top lane Jinx for the AD carry and leaving themselves the option to counter pick that mid lane. Forgiven has run Caitlyn traditionally in the LCS, ran Tristana a couple of times as well when his Graves and Lucian were taken off the table. He does lock in the Tristana as a secondary option. SK got a lot of scaling here.
They do, and it's another combo they have run before where they have Nami just to offer some early aggression in the laning phase where Tristana is very weak after her changes here. Obviously lost quite a lot of early damage, but still, with some scaling, she becomes still very strong, and she's fantastic at pushing down towers. And as you mentioned yourself, SK Gaming here, from mid lane, top lane, and AD carry, we're talking late game monsters in big team fights. And that's one of the changes we've seen from SK in the last week of the LCS. It's no longer just about 1-3-1 split pushing. This is way more team fight focused. They played Katarina in week 9 and they did the same. Yes, they were pushing early on to get that lead. Once they had it, they went in towards the mid lane and started team fighting as a unit around dragons, around buffs in the jungle. They're looking to do the same here once they scale up.
So SK Gaming got the team fight. Deficio, off air, we were talking about Cogmore in the middle lane. You said you didn't like it because Unicorns did not have a strong laning presence. Power of Evil has said to Svenskeren, I dare you to invade my jungle with that mid lane pick.
The reason I'm a little bit worried about this pick is because when they played it against Gambit, they fell behind in every single early game. What they did so well, however, was punish Gambit for making some very obvious mistakes, which allowed them to get to the late game point, or at least to the level 11 point for Power of Evil, where he's gonna hit his massive power spike. What he's doing is always going tier into Luden's Echo. You hit level 11, you bind Elixir, you get a blue buff, and you just group with him and you just start sieging down. That happened, or could happen, because Gambit made mistakes early game that gave Unicorns of Love enough gold to hit that point and be strong enough. SK Gaming is a team who's shown multiple times, if you give them an early lead, they don't make the same mistakes. They don't allow you to get back in the game like Gambit did against the Unicorns. That's why I'm a little bit concerned. But because there's a Cassiopeia which is good in the laning phase, we're not talking LeBlanc who's going to one-shot you in that situation there. So I want to see what they're going to do, though.
Well, there's your team comps, guys. Hit us up for the first time today at LOL Esports. Hashtag SKWin if you are behind the #1 team from the regular split, or hashtag UOL win if you think the pink power ponies will pop SK's bubble. And we are not seeing any of those unique picks straight out of the gates. We've had a lot of discussion between Dentist, Leviathan, and all the other casters off air about whether or not you pull out the Shaco, the Udyr in game 1, or whether you save it for later in the day. UOL have got a non-standard EU team composition. We don't see that AP cog middle often at all.
Only from them,
Only
honestly.
from UOL.
And they played it, as we talked about in the quarterfinals, against Gambit quite a few times. Same setup with also the Jinx. And again, the whole objective here is don't really do anything before you hit level 11 for Power People. You get rank 2 of your ulti, you get that Luden's Echo, and you start sieging up. All he has to do is land 2 ultis on 1 target, and that target is forced away from the tower, opens up for the Jinx to come in now and just melt these towers here in a matter of seconds. That's the whole goal here for the Unicorns of Love. And they're also trying to match SK Gaming in terms of late game scaling. If you look at them, 2 big tanks in the top lane, you got scaling mid laners, you got scaling AD carries. We might not be in for a very explosive early game, but once we start hitting the mid game, mid to late, that's where you're going to see the 2 teams start shining. One of them is going to be fantastic in all-in team fights from SK Gaming's side. Unicorns is more about fast pushing and poking from distance.
Well, we'll see if Unicorns can hold off long enough for their scaling comp to switch on. They did make a number of mistakes against Gambit in the quarterfinal, and SK will punish them in a similar fashion.
They will, for sure. And we're going to see, because Tristana was locked in and not the Caitlyn, Unicorns of Love are okay taking the 2-2 lane. As we mentioned, Tristana is not the strongest in the early stages. You need to get that BF sword so you get some damage on your E, the explosive shot, which now, of course, scales with attack damage for her. And then, obviously, your goal as a Tristana is not to kill and fight early on. It's to get to the point where you, a bit like a Jinx, can get to a tower and you can take them down so far. So both teams here have 2 AD carries that will melt your objectives if they get the chance.
Yeah, and it's also, it plays into SK's style so heavily. If they can get themselves into position to push down towers, it works out well. It's going to be a little difficult against this Morgana Jinx. We do see that Forgiven and Enrated have returned to lane after doing Krugs, but Vardex and Hylissang were given a fair amount of time to push this wave up, so that race to level 2
first. One more minion here from Forgiven and he gets it.
For the record, Hylissang has landed his first binding of the game. If that continues,
yeah,
that's a good sign for Unicorns.
It's the exact same bottom lane they ran so often against Gambit, which honestly fell behind in terms of CS. Vardex was down compared to Pinoy in every single game they played. But then once they hit level 6, Hylissang would land a binding, he would all-in with the Morgana, and they would get a kill because they have a super strong all-in between Jinx and Morgana at level 6. The CC from binding into trap into Morgana ulti is insane, and then you have that execute from the rocket of Jinx to finish off a target. So they're gonna wait for level 6 before we really see any action for them. Well, first gank here, we're expecting Svensson to be very active in the early game. He's not afraid of a Gragas on a Rek'Sai. That's a matchup he's gonna win, so he can look for these early ganks.
And it is what we were talking about in that mid lane. You're not scared of a Kog'Maw pre-6. You're not scared of a Kog'Maw when you've got that Cassio. Take a look at Sven. He wants to push his way down to this bottom lane. Flashes are available. We do see the Tremor Sense. Svenskern's come in. He's knocked up Hylissang, but Hylissang's flashed. Bubble has caught. Rocket jump in from Forgiven. Hylissang and Vardex in full retreat. They're looking for the kill, not going to find it. His explosive charge does pop. Only the flash from Hylissang burned, but a lot of lane control garnered for SK Gaming.
And a very classic SK move if you look at the recent weeks for them. Svensson doesn't put too much attention on the top lane anymore. Freddy, he can handle himself. Now he's been playing Maokai quite a lot. You don't really want to invest too much into him. Instead, you see Svensson around the mid lane and the bottom lane, especially when they have a matchup that can snowball. Tristana and Nami here, if you start getting a lead, you can force these bubbles here. As we talked about how it's shorter cooldown than the Black Shield. So by giving Forgiven a great start, get him to that BF sword, he can start being a bit of a bully.
Great bubble, and that Black Shield's not going to help you from the charge. Vardex actually walks almost in range of Hylissang. A lot of damage being traded. Forgiven and Enrated stamping authority on this lane with the help of Svenskeren. It has hurt him a tiny bit, but he's yet to back, still sitting on that Hunter's Machete. And this is a very late blue buff pickup. thanks to that early gank presence. That might throw off UOL if
they had a ward
they
though
were thinking anything. Thank you for that one.
Time. Again, you're not looking to invade Power of Evil. He's going to need a lot more levels before you really want to start fighting around it. And again, you have Gragas into a Rek'Sai. So Unicorns of Love will have the timer. We have to see if they want to use it for potentially a dragon. What you can do is when the second blue buff spawns in the game, you know the mid lane and jungle is going for it, then you instantly rush towards a dragon when they're stuck on the opposite side of the map. But that's all in the future, and again, the Unicorns not really looking to do a whole lot. The first few levels, you gotta get level 6 in your bottom lane, and you need a level 11 in your mid lane before we really start seeing some plays from them.
Well, we'll see if they can make their way there safely. Power of Evil farming up, already back to pick up that relatively early tier. Fox still farming away that middle lane. Not pushing quite as heavily as maybe he could have, as he has decided to just back. You see Freddy jumping in on Chachi as Hylissang lands another Dark Binding. Needs a zap for his troubles, Ignite burning away. And Vardags is going to take a pop from that satchel charge. Good trade for Unicorns of Love in this bottom lane. But Enrater's got a full mana bar and will slowly be able to heal Forgiven back up.
And also with that early gank here, we see a difference in items from the 280 carries. Pickaxe for Forgiven, he got to push in the wave, had a CS lead as well, while Vardags was forced back and only got double Thorn. Svenska now is in the top lane trying to force a flash.
And I think he's going to get it. Vizicachi, low mana, actually just walks straight out. Take a look at the river, though. You've got Gragas and Kog'Maw coming up. That's level 6 with Living Artillery. We do see an instant flash away from Svenskeren as Vizicachi's now joining the fight. Freddy does have access to that Maelstrom, is going to pop it down. Forced a flash in reply. And all of a sudden, Power of Evil burns Ghost for 2 flashes from SK.
Let's just talk about what happened here, because Svenskeren decided to gank the top lane while his own mid laner was back in base, getting that tier here. Power of Evil went back earlier, so once he returned to lane, there was nobody there to help or to do anything against him. So he pushed out the wave and started roaming when he saw the gank, and there was no response from SK in that case.
Oh, Binding connects. It's going to follow into the Flame Chompers, and we do see Forgiven actually hopping forward. Ignite is burning away on Vardags as he's forced to flash and heal away. And this is just an action-packed bottom lane that Forgiven and Enrated have maintained control since that first game.
I remember every single time they trade, Nami has a heal, Morgana does not. So the sustain is in favor of SK Gaming whenever they trade. There's no mana on him now. He's gonna have to wait a little bit before he can throw out another one. But you see how every time they trade, Forgiven gets back some HP, can go in for another one. I like the other move from Unicorns before, timing the back of SK Gaming's players. He's saying, okay, there's no mid lane at the moment. We can roam and counter gank up here. And obviously Svensson shouldn't have gone for the gank in the first place if he knew there was no response from his own mid laner.
Well, we got to give some praise to Unicorns. There was so much pressure on their shoulders to survive through the laning phase. It's still early days, only 8 minutes on the clock, but they're keeping relevant in CS. They've responded to Svenskeren's ganks despite the weaker lanes, but they need to keep this up, and it's a difficult scenario.
Also just, honestly, slower scaling champions from SK than what we normally see. It's normally assassins in the mid lane, it's a lane bully in the bottom lane, and that's where you can't pick that slow scaling come from Unicorns of Love, but because they saw what SK Gaming were picking here, they could still go for their tried and tested style themselves. Didn't have to worry too much about SK just rolling over them in the laning phase. As you can see, it's been a bit of a farm phase. Only in the bottom lane is a big difference. And that's also due to the gank from Svenskan, but also Nami being a fantastic laner.
Well, Forgiven manages to just hop away from that Dark Binding from Hylissang. As we do see Kikis making his way towards this bottom lane. It looks like he's going to come in for a gank. His body slammed over. That's a flash barrel. Forgiven is going to flash away from that Dark Binding. Continues to get chased down. Less than 100 HP as Hylissang and Kikis will look for that last hit. Hylissang doesn't even go for the kill. Lets Kikis secure it. First blood to the Unicorns.
Very clear that Forgiven wasn't ready for that one.
Vizicachi ran into a crab, I think. Oh, and the Dark Binding connects onto Enrated. We do see the Super Mega Death Rocket into the giant smiley face. Kikis is looking for another one. Decides to back away. And look at that. Vizicachi, the unstoppable onslaught. I'm pretty confident he hit that Scuttle Crab. Was trying to set something up middle, didn't work out. But Unicorns, first kill.
Bottom lane gank here, Kikis, he jumps into the bush and he doesn't wait, just throws the ulti instantly here, knocks back Forgiven. Such a nice setup and no reaction in time from SK Gaming. Super important first blood for them, because now items, tables turned here. Jinx got to go back, afford a BF sword, only had the Dawn's Blade from the first one. And Forgiven, not even close. Average Blade and Longsword. Suddenly now the all-in potential of Vardex and Hylissang is gonna be insane. And SK Gaming has to be careful in this bottom lane, 2v2.
Well, we'll see what they can do. I just got confirmation from our observers. Chachi was in fact running away from a gank down the river to safety. Not forced to burn that flash. So thank you for that update, guys. Take a quick second to look at the itemization. Kikis working his way towards the Cinder Hulk, of course. Tia still stacking for Power of Evil. You touched on the BF sword and the impact that Vardex will have against Forgiven. But look at the damage onto this tower. Forgiven gonna back away, Satchel Charge chunks it down. And truthfully, Hylissang and Vardex have been defending their objective for the entire 10 minutes.
There's no summoners now in the bottom lane for SK Gaming. Kikis should return down here. You know Hylissang has such a high success rate on his bindings here. Aim to land one and then just all in with the jungler as well. Get that kill, go straight to the dragon, and suddenly you secure an early objective. SK Gaming knows this can happen, and they're trying to react before anything goes on here. So Freddy has walked all the way down from the top lane. There's TP in just a few seconds for Vizicsacsi here. He can push in the wave first and then TP if needed.
Well, take a look at those ward differences. As you can see, SK clearing out. Svenskeren significantly lower wards. And we'll see whether or not this lack of vision comes to hurt SK. They've rushed the dragon down so quickly. It is secured by Kikis. He throws in the barrel of the smite and picks up dragon number one. He failed flashes. He face plants and Chachi drops him down with the help of Power of Evil. Now SK are scattering to the wind. Unicorns of Love are trying to grab control of this series. Freddy is going to get chopped down by the Lumberjack and the rest of the Unicorns as Svenskeren and Forgiven are trying to back away. 3 kills, a dragon, and 1,000 gold. This is exactly what the ponies wanted.
Couldn't wish for a better start. Vizicsacsi here, not really feeling too much in trouble. Gets to back away as well. So the Unicorns kills dragon as well for Kikis here. That was a dragon started by SK. Freddy walked all the way from the top lane down just to take that dragon here and back away before Unicorns could pull off any ganks that could then lead to a potential objective after. Completely backfired. Kills for Vardex, kills for Power of Evil. That's the important one here. Wait for that Luden's Echo. Wait for his rank 2 ulti. And then you're going to see Unicorn start grouping and really be annoying. So let's see it again. Ulti in. And he gets it for himself. Sadly for SK, some missed flashes as well.
Heartbreaking.
And then you get a Sign ulti in your face.
Well, you're not going to miss when you throw it down from that close. Still a lot of damage onto Unicorns, you can't deny that. Had the engage been slightly less favorable, maybe it could have been different, but all praise to Unicorns. They responded, they rushed into the dragon, and that teleport 1 second later, you never know, you never know.
Well, good reaction time at least. That's what we got to give them. Not really any reason to figure what could have happened. We saw here from the Unicorns exactly what happened, and it was good for them. Good reaction. Chachi on this Sign. I mean, Sign into Maokai. It's not the most exciting lane in the world.
Well, a lot of faith
in
favor of the Unicorns of Love. A little bit of a lane gank. That was a flash away from Freddy. Scared of the barrel. Summoner spell blown. But Unicorns, definitely their play style is pulling so many fans. And you know, one thing we're going to touch on, SK Gaming during the regular split went 15-3. The only teams they lost to was Fnatic in the finals, H2K in the semi-final, who dropped to Fnatic, and the Unicorns. And as it stands, Unicorns have put up a very strong fight against a slightly different flavor of SK. We're not seeing the same.
That's safe to say.
Yeah.
Safe to say from SK. It's not the same lane bully style we have seen before from them. But
and it's not a massive lead either.
This is only game 1 for them, and it is also a chance for SK to see if they can pull off one of these compositions here. Kikis, he's ready to steal more things away from Svenskeren. Might even try and look for a fight.
Well, Dark Binding does not connect. Svenskeren still trying to sniff around. As we see first item completed here for Power of Evil after the Tia. Luden's Echo. Fox has also had that Archangel Staff stacking up for a little while. 450 mana.
Wait for level 11.
400 for Power of Evil. He has just hit power level 11 there, Deficio. And let's see how Unicorns decide to play this. Unicorns have not put any pressure on SK's towers. They've been content to sit back and farm. But you have to feel with the way the game is playing, they might be feeling more confident to make aggressive plays.
Well, the thing is, now that they've managed to get back in the bottom lane, they don't necessarily have to go for a group in the mid lane because they can contest 2v2 and they know if binding connects, they can get a kill in this bottom lane as well. So that can stop them from at least grouping. Had they still been losing the lane, they would already grouped in the mid lane by now and start pushing down a tower for themselves. And this build from Power of Evil, it's very risky because it relies on you using your mid-game spike now with this rank 2 ult with the Luden's Echo. It delays everything else in terms of the late game where, in terms of items you need, you're not going to get, let's say, an Athene, so you're not going to have that extra mana regen. So you need to connect your ultis, otherwise you're just simply going to run out of mana and not do anything. So the spike mid-game with Luden's Echo Rush is super important to use. Otherwise you fall off compared to, let's say, Tia into Athenes, into Seraphim's Brace, and so on.
Well, let's find out how this jungle interaction goes. Kikis and Svenskeren trading damage is relatively even thus far, but Kikis was forced to use that explosive charge, pop down the barrel, and actually is able to just waddle his way out. So he does get out safely, but blue buff will be secured. Kikis had actually been sniffing around for a little while on that objective. Equally as important on Fox's Cassio. However, of course, Cassio's going to get that extra cooldown spam.
Like this ward here, you can TP to it if you manage to connect the binding from Chachi. There's one on Enrated.
There's the TP. Here comes Vizichachi. Enrated throws down the tidal wave, but it's not going to be enough. No support yet from Vizichachi. This turns it into a 3-on-2. Freddy is in the back line, but here comes Svenskeren. No available support from the rest of the Unicorns. 3-on-3 as they trade kills back and forth. No, fade away rocket secures a kill as now Chachi and Vardax are trying to chop down Svenskeren and Freddy. It ends up being a 1-for-2 trade, and Freddy's still sticking around. Defensive Void Rush from Svenskeren as Kikis was shoving down the top lane. What more can the Unicorns get? They won the fight, and they're going to put pressure on the tower as well.
Yeah, they get a lot of damage in the tower here. Will most likely be able to take it if they stay around for another wave. Seems like they don't want to be too greedy, though, and just backs away from this one. The wave is also fairly far away, but this is why they're keeping the lanes going and don't group with this fed Power of Evil, or fairly fed Power of Evil in the mid lane, because they know land one binding, you can all in. They even had the teleport coming in on that ward, and it paid off. Those 2 kills more. Vardax, despite losing in CS, like he did against Gambit, he picks up all the early kills on this Jinx, and that helps him get to his late game point a lot faster, despite losing in farm.
Vardax 3-0-1, sitting on around 2,000 gold, is about to shop, picks himself up that Infinity Edge and Berserker's Greaves. Unfortunately, by sticking around and being frustrated by Freddy, it allows SK to secure an uncontested dragon. You could see that Vardax and Vizichachi were trying to back. They didn't get their opportunity, and Svenskeren instantly kills that ward. So here's a replay of the fight.
Notice the TP timing. As soon as the binding has been thrown by Hylissang, he communicates to Vizichachi saying, I'm gonna land it, TP now. So it comes in even before it connects, and that's 100% kill even without the TP. But then you stay around for the fight. They respect the fact that Freddy can teleport down as well. Meanwhile, look down at your Pip. That's the grouping we talk about, how you get to that tower here. You land a bit of poke, and then the Jinx is just gonna melt the tower on her own, Forgiven. Also going down in the very end. Nice little ulti from Vardax.
Really well played from Vardax indeed. Firing off that death rocket after being hit by the buster shot, no less. Quite a dramatic effect. So Unicorns, they get themselves their first tower of the game. SK also secured that bottom turret thanks to all of the build-up for the first 10 minutes. Don't forget that. And we return ourselves to this lane setup, even on CS, relatively even on items. However, Forgiven has had that Avarice Blade for a little while longer. Earned himself around 350 bonus gold. It's going to accelerate him to that second item spike. And let's see how Unicorns decide to play out these lanes if they want to keep evening or trading towers.
We saw the focus on outer turrets from the Unicorns beforehand. By them staying and pushing the wave into the tower and getting at least 50% on it, yes, they gave up the dragon, but they don't care about that one now because it's 1-to-1 anyway. They care about getting out these outer turrets so they can start sieging on the tier 2 ones. It's a lot easier to ward your flanks the further you get into the enemy territory, because then you just ward the entrance to the jungle instead of the entire river being warded up at the tier 1. So let's say you're grouping on the mid lane. So for them here, the value in getting an outer turret was higher than taking a dragon, and that's why they stayed after getting those kills beforehand, and now they got their bottom lane outer turret. Power of Evil still looking insanely strong with the Luden's Echo. If I know him correctly, he's gonna aim for Death Cap and a Void Staff as the next few items, and all he's trying to do is simply buff up the damage of the Luden's Echo, and every time he connects on ulti, he's gonna take 30% of your HP. If you connect on the second one, you're forced back to base, and you cannot defend your own tower, and that's what he's aiming to do, simply by buffing up the Luden's Echo damage as much as possible, which is different because he doesn't actually have the best AP scaling, so you don't need a death cap. It's just simply for as much damage on this one item.
Well, it has worked thus far. We've just broken the 20-minute mark in the first game of this series. And Unicorns, they're up in every metric except towers. More gold, except dragons rather. One extra tower. They're ahead in CS. Overall, and doing a very good job. We touched on how important it was going to be for Unicorns to show that with a standard comp, they could match SK's
Ready
laning.
needs to be careful here. It's very obvious the Unicorns will go for that top lane now, with the last outer turret. And Raider was on the bottom side. Not sure what he was aiming to do there, but it does mean he's very late for this, and the Unicorns can go 5 versus 1.
Well, it looks like the focus is the tower for until that Dark Binding hits. The Mega Death Rocket comes out. The Power of Evil secures the kill. Svenskeren, you've gone in without any help. That's a double kill to Power of Evil. The bubble falls short because of the Petrifying Gaze, and Sven, you were on the wrong side of that team fight.
SK Gaming is reacting very poorly here to what's going to happen next. And Raid is showing himself on the bottom lane, at least walking down there, not even being close to the top side of the map. A wave had already been built up, and it was the last outer turret. You know the Unicorns want a group right now. You know they want to push down your towers. Try and read the minion waves and get up there in time, or leave it. Don't have Freddy stay on the tower on his own. There's nothing he could do. He has to back away, or you need to have 5 guys there ready to try and defend it if you want him to stay at least, and they were not. They were split out on the map from SK. Unicorns of Love are doing everything correct at the moment, and they're getting all the towers down.
And just like that, the lead grows to 5,000 gold at 21 minutes and a 3-tower advantage. Unicorns of Love punishing Freddy for a trademark greedy style of play. How many times this split have we said Freddy shouldn't really be there, Freddy shouldn't really be in lane or pushing that, or defending that tower? It's something that has cost Freddy in the past, but has not always resulted in game losses. Let's also keep that in mind. But admittedly, 5k cold down and a completed Leandri's Torment from Power of Evil.
Okay.
If there was any more indication that you wanted to poke high health targets and secure safe objectives, that item screams it.
It's pretty good if you build a Rylai's as well, because then the slow will give you the double damage on the Leandri's proc, which is very effective. Now you're gonna have to rely on them either walking in your E, or you need to have a slow connect from maybe Kikis here if you wanted to get the double damage. So we're gonna have to see if he goes for Rylai's later on here for Power of Evil, otherwise it's not gonna be the most effective one. If you also consider the fact that only Freddy is gonna get an insane amount of HP. It is still, as you said yourself, this is purely, first of all, it's Snowball with the magic penetration, and then it's just poking out targets. You don't need to kill them, you just need to force them back to base so you can take an objective.
And something else you got to remember, as long as Hilisan continues to play like a sniper, it makes Power of Evil's ultimate so much easier to land. Take a look at this. Aggressive play into Svenskeren, and the charge goes backwards. Sven forced to tunnel to safety. The Death Rocket gets interrupted as Fox throws down the Petrifying Gaze. Now Unicorns are split. This could be bad for them. Kikis is zoning away 3 members of SK in the background. Hylissang has gone down.
Boom!
Here comes Chachi. He curves the bullet, spins around a corner, and is now taking up 3. Pops the shield to pop Svenskeren. Here comes Power of Evil. He's low on mana, but blue buff is ticking away. Visit Chachi, roars of the Slayer, and he's going to slam down the decimating smash. Not quickly enough as Power of Evil secures the kill. It is a 3 for 2, but a slightly risky fight from the Unicorns of Love.
A little bit being caught in the jungle. I think it's safe to say SK Gaming were ready for that one. Forgiving got himself a kill. Will try and take a tower as he knows the Unicorns are going to go for this dragon here. At least try and trade it. Oh, and raid it. He's in problems.
I think
yeah.
Well, if Kog'Maw was going to eat anybody, he's going to eat the walking sushi. Now he's setting sights on Forgiven. That's a big hit, but watch the mana pool. Misses the second shots, and Forgiven's going to get away. I thought Power of Evil could have landed a few more shots. But here's a replay of that team fight.
Yeah, so let's see it again. It is the Unicorns of Love. They're looking to fight here. Visit Chachi at the moment is pretty far away from the rest of the team, so they try and go for a pick on Sven. There's a nice ulti from the Cassiopeia onto Vardax. That's the important one. Power of Evil joining now, hasn't managed to land a lot of poke before the fight even started, and now Unicorns are split up. The tanks are not there at first, Vishachi's coming now, and Kikis is down here on the bottom side. holding off 3 guys. There's nobody to stop Forgiven, but this is such a good ulti from Vizicachi. The guy got a double kill against Gambit as well. This guy on Sion. This guy on Sion.
Made you make some noises I've never heard before, Division.
Super awesome to watch. And we just see the damage from Power of Evil. I mean, when you rush this Luden's Echo, it gives you so much burst.
And he's making
just
that
also
burst
makes
count.
you extremely squishy if you do get caught out.
Well, luckily for Unicorns, he's not been caught yet. 6-0-1. Vardags on Jinx, 3-0-5. Phantom Dancer completed. Tanks are getting tankier and DPS is getting more DPS here. This Unicorns of Love maintain that 5,000 gold lead. The inner turret is available and the minion wave is about to conga line down. TP is available for both top laners. You can see Freddy is starting to back, but this tower is not going to be long for this world. Vardags is melting it, and SK have opted to forgo.
And if we look at SK Gaming here, how are they going to start a fight against such a long-range poke machine that Power of Evil is at the moment? They only have either Flash Engage from a Maokai, but oh, wait, there's a Black Shield. That's going to stop that engage from happening. Then you're going to need some TP in behind and maybe a flash in from the Cassiopeia to break a potential Black Shield and get an engage. Otherwise, there's no way for you to start a fight. And SK banned Annie, not Morgana, against Hylissang. And now this Morgana is stopping you from ever getting to Power of Evil and Vardags in the back line.
Look at the damage. It's just poking away. Power of Evil is hitting 2 out of every 3 of those living artilleries. Forgiven was low. Freddy ate a binding. Rated took some poke, but they did not get the inhibitor turret. Unicorns need to push out their side lanes and maybe set their sights on the bottom inner, as it's the last one remaining before knocking on those inhibitor steps.
One more level for Power of Evil, and he reaches the final form of I'm gonna be annoying and spit you in the face.
Implying that it hasn't been already?
Well, even more.
Even more, okay.
And you cannot engage because your only form is a Maokai jumping in onto a Black Shield, which is never gonna work. Then you need Svenskeren to have a tunnel behind the Unicorn so you can jump to and then like get in from the flank. That could maybe be a way for SK, but they gotta find a way of getting both Svenskeren and Freddy in at the same time on 2 different targets. Let's see what happens here. Chachi's down.
This is not going to end well. Chachi's in between 5. He will get taken out, but here comes a passive of Sion. Power of Evil hammering away with the artillery from the backline. They're going to trade top laners shortly. The Death Rocket secures the kill. Chachi for Freddy. What is more valuable? Kikis is about to get access to that cask. He's not going to get in range to use it, though. And SK, they stall the game for a little while longer at the cost of Freddy's life. Kikis will start off this Baron. Let's see what sort of engage there is. Tidal Wave was used from Enrated. That's a very big tool, and Forgiven is not with his team. Hylissang waiting on the crab. He connects with the binding. The artilleries are out, and Power of Evil gets one more. Fox gets pinned against the wall, holding onto that petrifying gaze. He flashes forward. Hylissang looks away, doesn't get caught, but he will get dropped by the poison. Here comes Forgiven. Forgiven's got Vardags, and Power of Evil is in full retreat with low mana. SK Gaming have turned this fight on its head, and it's been long enough for Vizicachi to respawn and to teleport in. At the end of the day, 2 members of Unicorn still down, and SK are now considering the Baron. There's no mana. There's no mana for poke from Power of Evil, but Vizicachi is around.
Full HP Sion.
Low health Kikis. Here comes Sion. He misses this time round. Flashes forward. The smash doesn't really connect, but the roar will slow a few on the retreat. Kikis is still very tanky. 1,000 HP is being melted away. Buster Shot plus explosive may not be enough, and it's not. Now Power of Evil's flashing away. Somebody get me an oxygen tank. Decimating Smash gets charged up, and Chachi is retreating away. The fight of the ages. And Baron still left untouched. The rocket from downtown, no, that one went wide.
Went wide. We saw here for Power of Evil, this is why some players like their Athene's build, because then you can have these long fights, still get some mana back. He was completely out of mana, only sending 1 ulti, I believe, for the last half a minute here when they were fighting back and forth. But SK Gaming felt like they had to do something. Trying to force a Baron fight is a way of maybe splitting up Unicorns, maybe surprised him a little bit. Ended up, we can say it backfired, but then again it would have been the same if Unicorns had grouped on a tower, which is what they want to do. Unicorns don't need to start a Baron here. Go 5, go down to a tower, play that game. You don't need to risk putting your carries in a Baron pit where SK can't get to them.
I, for one, think that was quite a smart play from SK, despite the fact that it was sloppy and drawn out. Baron was not taken by either team. The inner turret in the bottom lane is still standing. And that gold lead becomes less and less as the game progresses. But as I'm busy praising the decision-making, Freddy finds himself really not in the right position. And all of a sudden, Unicorns 35 seconds without their opponent's tank. The cask is going to force the flash, and that means Enrated is really on the wrong side. Living Artillery is being spammed. He's dodged a few. He can't dodge the last. 2 members down. And all of a sudden, Unicorns of Love are knocking on the door. SK Gaming are forced to let them in. And the crowd erupts in chants. Unicorns with the first inhibitor of the second semi-final. They are showing up with the scaling comp. This bodes well if you're a Unicorns fan.
And as long as they stay out in the open where Power Weaver can sit and poke, if he's long range, he has a black shield ready if needed, then there's not a whole lot SK Gaming can do to stop them. Base is open. SK once again is going to try and see if they can rush a Baron and try and force a fight potentially there. Or see if they can catch the Unicorns off guard. Vardex is going to do this Dragon while the rest of the Unicorns are trying to stop this one. Sven is already being poked down.
Kikis is looking for him.
It's like shooting fish in a barrel when they're standing in there. I mean, you just poke in with your ulti from Power of Evil over and over.
Until your mana runs out, down to a third. Still no mana regen, despite having that Archangel Staff upgraded to the Seraph's Embrace.
That is a trade-off, as we mentioned a few times. You get more damage with this build, but you get less ultis to use in that sense.
Luckily for Unicorns and Power, he's landed them.
Oh, I absolutely love this one from Power of Evil. Because the Unicorns are so good at using it, from level 11, they do group up, they do play around him. And in games like this, when there's not enough engage from the other side and you get a lead, there's just nothing the other team can do against you. Unless you miss position and you allow them to get a flank on you, you should never be able to die if you're Power of Evil here.
And he has not. 9-0-2, still keeping track of Power of Evil's performance. You know, we were talking about this matchup. Forgiven, will he get sniped? Let's see. Shot after shot, he manages to get away. But to Fisher, you felt quite strongly that this series could be defined by Fox and Power of Evil's performances. Because when the respective mid laners do well, their teams do well. It enables their junglers, it enables the team's style to come out. And as it stands, Unicorns are rushing this Baron. Here comes SK. Freddy gets caught by a Dark Binding. Hylissang again. We did see the cast come up from Kikis. That was a little bit inopportune. Freddy's going to get chopped down first. The front line's away. Vardex manages to avoid the big stun of the Petrifying Gaze. He's going to get excited and force Unicorns back while Power of Evil snipes one more with the Living Artillery.
10-0. This guy,
if there was fantasy points, he would be extremely happy.
Yeah, when he gets a good start, he's shown so many times that he can just carry games for his team, and he's doing it here. Full credit to the rest of the members as well. I mean, when you have this Hylissang Morgana who lands the binding and you just gotta land the ulti from Power of Evil, that combo together is so good at creating picks.
Oh, Freddy got hot again.
I just don't understand why teams value banning Annie over Morgana when it comes to Unicorns of Love. Because, yes, Annie can start fights, but she doesn't have the same pick potential in this sense, where you land a binding and use that to poke down a target and force them away from a tower. Annie is way more about all-in engaging. That doesn't bode well with a poke composition from the Unicorns. So if you're afraid of this comp here, well, Morgana is one of the things you gotta take away.
Funny thing is, the only real poke in this comp is primarily on that Cogmore.
That's enough.
True, touche.
Then you got a little bit from the Jinx, and you got the Execute in the end.
So, well played by Unicorns.
Which is all you need.
They've got a good mixture. This is a very, very smart team composition. Strong front line, strong disengage, strong pick. Feels like they can do a little bit of everything. And you've got all of that scaling AD damage from Jinx to back up if things go to the super late game. 34 minutes on the clock, 58,000 gold for Unicorns. Supers in 2 lanes, and they're going to take an uncontested tower. Sven Skjern, you've got to be very, very careful. Forced to flash to safety. Here comes the rest of the team. Fox is actually going to flash away. Chachi flashed for that one too. We do see Freddy doing battle with top laners in the back line. Let's see what Vardex can do. Where is his focus? Not on the tower yet. We do see a super mega Deathlocker dropping 2 members of SK super low. And that's going to allow the Unicorns to set themselves up. Fox is down. Hylissang did it again. Vardex and Power of Evil closing this one out. They're going to take the 3rd inhibitor. And they will continue the siege without the damage from Fox. There's not much chance. Forgiven's caught out. We do see the tidal wave being thrown to split up the Unicorns as Svenskeren's in the middle of the fight, but he's doing nothing. We do see in the back line, Vardax gets excited, gets a second, looking for a third, is going to get the third before being dropped by the explosive charge. Ladies and gentlemen, the audience is chanting. And they've done it. Game 1 in the best of 5 goes to the ponies.
Yeah, and just to make sure everyone understands here, we're not saying that Annie is bad for Hylissang. It's still a fantastic pick. We're not saying you can't use Annie in a pick composition. But in this type here, where it's about long-range snipes, the Morgana is just so important for Unicorns. Also, to prevent the engage. Because that Black Shield, when you're against the Maokai, that stops everything he can do to get onto your carries. He can only target one champion. It's a magic spell as well. When the Maokai goes in, and everything gets blocked by this Morgana.
Very big smiles from the Unicorns of Love, but Sheepy's face there is the most serious that I have seen all split long. He's out for blood, and that was a fantastic game. The one thing I want to highlight very quickly, something we haven't discussed just yet, Unicorns of Love will be playing red side in 4 of the 5 games.
Yeah.
They chose red side on matches 2 and matches 4, which was their choice. SK put them on red side on games 1 and 5. The reason I highlight that, Kog'Maw was last pick. Kog'Maw was the final champion locked in from the Unicorns of Love, and it carried 11-0-7.
And to make it worse, if that gets banned away, you don't know what new picks the Unicorns have prepared, which the thing often about these new picks does not matter. It's because there's either a lot of counters to it and you can only pick it into like specific comps. Now they get to see everything from SK and can decide, can we use it here or not? And then we're going to have to see if they lock it in as a last pick, which is why it's so good for them. Also, the first pick in this game was Cassiopeia, which is not a champion we normally see from SK Gaming because they like to be able to roam early on and they like to be able to pick people off quite a lot. You can't do that on the Cassiopeia. You're fantastic in team fights. You have a good laning phase, but you need to sit and farm up here and you need to go as a unit and get these fights in. This is not a champion we normally see from SK because of that. That was the first pick. It was a takeaway from the Unicorns of Love.
That's the important point, isn't it?
So
the fact that in their bans, Syndra, Hecarim, and Annie, so very targeted, taking away that Syndra from Power of Evil, which is the lane bully we were expecting. That is what we thought was going to happen. And then the first pick, Cassio, because again, you take Cassio, you remove the risk of Cassio Yorick, which Unicorns use to great effect. There are more problems for SK to solve in the pick ban phase.
This one game, yeah.
Even in total, because of the fact Unicorns have red side in 3 of the next 4 games. I feel with Unicorns having the option to counter pick, it's more difficult for SK to pick ban.
Here's just the weird thing for me, because this is a comp that Unicorns ran a week ago against Gambit. SK sat at home, watched the games, and said, okay, we can see everything they're doing, we can see the way they're picking them, and yet they pick in that Maokai as the second one and leave Morgana open, even though they know that Unicorns don't care about you taking Maokai if Morgana is on the table already. And SK picked themselves into this. Didn't have an answer early game.
Keep in mind,
and as soon as they fell behind, no way of engaging.
We didn't expect it either. We had discussed off air, like, we kind of felt that if Unicorns were going to beat SK in a head-to-head, we were expecting stronger laners. We were expecting maybe to match SK's aggression.
If SK picked the strong lanes, yeah.
What was super smart from, I think, Unicorns is maybe recognizing that Cassio pick mid meant they could go for a scaling mid as well.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
So a lot of praise to them. You can see the team backstage actually chatting. And again, this is a very serious, very, very interesting team to watch because they went 9-9 in the regular split. There were so many people going, where does the cheese end? Where do these unique champions, these one-off picks stop? They didn't use them a lot in the regular split, let's be fair. And they didn't have the greatest of showings. But now in the playoffs, they're pulling out, you know, the Kog'Maw against SK. They're pulling out the Udyr, the Shaco. And it has worked out.
Has worked out. It was only game 1. We're going to have to see what SK Gaming does now for the next one. I expect some new picks at least coming in from them.
Well, we'll find out what they do. But to break down this particular match and UOL's game 1 win, let's hand it back to Shux, Dentist, and Leviathan at the analyst desk.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Wow, what a game 1 from the Unicorns of Love. Unlike the series, how they started it versus you guys in game 1, where they went standard and they lost really hard. This time, they went standard and they won incredibly hard. Let's talk a little bit about the team comps from both sides and also get a graphic to well exemplify that. A first lock in Cassiopeia for SK Gaming, throwing down the gauntlet in a very late game-oriented comp.
Absolutely. The Cassiopeia with a pick away from Power of Evil. Power of Evil is one of the 2 known Cassiopeia players in the European LCS. So it was on paper a good move to take away from him, but this scaling mid laner opened up, just like the Fisher said, the Kog'Maw as a last pick. Kog'Maw doesn't work in a team composition where you're facing an assassin, because the assassin can just go in on you. It's similar to when you play Kog'Maw as an AD carry. But in this case, Cassiopeia wasn't that big of a threat in the early game, so it opened up the late game scaling Kog'Maw, and he carried like incredible performance in Kog'Maw.
Yeah, and I'm actually really happy to see Kickers pull out the Gragas. They banned Gragas, I believe, 100% of the time against us in our series, which led us to believe that maybe Kickers hadn't practiced a champion, but give him a week and he managed to pick it up, and they executed it really well. It was the Gragas that was enabling them to set up pickoffs. We were seeing the Gragas barrel onto Svenskeren time after time. They're just really forcing SK to take the fights that UOL wants them to take. So it's a really good champion pickup for him, and they executed it really well.
Yeah, one thing that we also have to talk about is the fact that SK picked a scaling composition overall. Unicorns of Love denied Delusion in the Graves, so what was left was either the Caitlyn or the Tristana. That's what we usually see. Bidona didn't expect the Corki. If you pick a Tristana and the Cassiopeia, you want to go late game, and that opens up early game aggression for Unicorns of Love. And Unicorns of Love is a team that can definitely go aggressive in the early game, and they were just all over the place. Gragas making plays, getting that first blood with a beautiful play. It was just exactly what they had to do.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that like the setup for the play was actually really beautiful. They were able to force the jump out of Forgiven just off of a Morgana binding, communicated to Kickus, hey, he has no jump for 20 seconds or whatever it is, come bottom, just ease over the wall, flash ultimates, and just set it up perfectly. It was exactly what they needed.
Glad you mentioned that Morgana binding, because if we didn't see it enough in the series versus you guys, Hylissang just continuing that MVP streak, also in the fight. What, did you?
Oh, no, he's just a monster.
Yeah, he's a monster, really good. And let's pull a replay up on the screen from the minute that the Unicorns of Love had their advantage. They know how to push it.
Yeah, and this is just one of those situations where Unicorns of Love forces you to team fight. They make a pick in their jungle, group up all together, and then just force you to fight it. It started pretty good for SK. They were able to take a kill in this, but then just Unicorns countered with a favorable trade and the Drake right afterwards. So it was just one of those Unicorns moments.
Yeah, and the thing about this, I think, is either you have to give up your jungler. If you're SK, you have to say, okay, well, Svenskaren's just dead, and not take the fight and give up an objective, or you have to take the fight, a fight that, you know, you're not probably going to win because this is exactly what they want. It's a lose-lose situation based off of the setup from UOL.
And at that moment, actually, even though the Unicorns of Love was very ahead, the old fear crept in with me that we sometimes say for the Unicorns, they just go and they go hard even though when they shouldn't. But something that was so glaring in this one, skill shot wise, the power of evil ultimates, the Morgana bindings, the Gragas ultimates, even the Sion ultimates and hitting people, it was incredible across the board. Even Vardax with his fadeaway ultimates, they are just in the zone right now.
Absolutely, Vardax stepped up huge in this game. He was able to have a really good laning phase against the bot lane.
Forgiven and Rated.
Yeah, and Rated and Forgiven known to be the best bot lane in Europe, and they was just having a clutch game in the bot lane. Vardax, I don't know why you give him Morgana. Like the Annie ban, maybe they expected that the bot lane gets banned out and that he prefers the Annie by now, but if you leave that thing open, he's gonna lock it in and he's gonna perform. Like you can't give him Morgana.
A lady. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and like they have the patience. Like they know what they need to do. Like they just wait for the binding, wait for something to hit, and then they all go in. They have the patience. They've played this comp before, and they play it really, really well. Like you can say Unicorns of Love are the cheese team, but they played a magnificent standard game. It was really well executed.
Yeah, it was beautiful to watch. So now you're SK Gaming. You're going into Game 2. You know that the Unicorns of Love, if it goes to 5, they have 3 more red side games. How will that influence your mindset going into the next one?
Absolutely. It's all about mindset now. If you're SK and you're going into the game against Unicorns of Love, with the strong characters that they have, they expect it to go 3-0. At least that's what I'm thinking. So if they lose the first game, now it's all about the staff. They have to stabilize their mentality and they have to make sure, okay, we lost the first one, but there are 4 other ones, potentially. So they have to be on top of the game. And, like, please don't tilt, please.
Yeah, this is going to be a real test for Forgiven. He claims he's one of the best. Well, it's time to see if he's one of the best at mental fortitude. I know N-Rated pretty well, and when he gets angry, he tends to step up his play rather than step down. So I expect to see a strong performance out of N-Rated in this next game, but it's really going to come down to Forgiven. You know, he has the mechanics. He claims he's one of the best. Well, can you hold it together after dropping an early game to Unicorns?
We will see. Don't make N-Rated angry. You won't like him when he's angry. And in just a few minutes, SK Gaming will try and even out the score against the Unicorns of Love. We'll be back covering all the action in just 3.5. Don't go anywhere.
How about the magic trick?
You play Shaco?
I would end this burden, but it always returns.
Dude, that's so Maokai.
Looks like he's going to come in for a gank. His body slammed over. That's a flash barrel. Forgiven is going to flash away from that Dark Binder. Continues to get chased down. Less than 100 HP as Hylissang and Kikis will look for that last hit. This lack of vision comes to hurt SK. They've rushed the dragon down so quickly. It is secured by Kikis. He throws in the barrel of the smite and picks up dragon number 1. He failed flashes.
Binding from Chachi.
There's one on Enrated. There's the TP. Here comes Vizichachi. Enrated throws down the tidal wave, but it's not going to be enough.
I'm in. I knock him up.
I ulti.
Rek'Sai!
Yeah, I'm Rek'Sai. I sap. Is that nice? Get on,
I'm in.
SK in the background. Hylissang has gone down. Boom. Here comes Chachi. He curves the bullet, spins around the corner, and is now tanking up 3. Pops the shield to pop Svenskeren. Power of Evil hammering away with the artillery from the backline. They're going to trade top laners shortly. The Death Rocket secures the kill. Buster Shot plus Explosive may not be enough, and it's not. Now Power of Evil's flashing away. Somebody get me an oxygen tank.
Go, boys!
And they've done it. Game 1 of the best of 5 goes to the ponies.